Hello and welcome. In today's video, we will break down the structure of the AI agent that generates a highly impactful email copy based on our private data and data that we fed to the AI. Let's jump straight to it. Before we begin, let's look at the front end of the solution. So what we see here is a Notion database of the email marketing agency clients. So we have the brands here, we have the task name, which is the basically topic of the email that we need to create. We need the type of the email, and we have the button create copy, and we have the copy that assistant will generate. So you can ask the question why we actually build the agent if we can just input in ChatGPT prompt like be world-class copywriter and create the email based on this topic. And the answer is simple, because LLMs don't have access to the brand's data, so they don't know this brand voice, they don't know what they sell, they don't know the way they sell it, and they pretty much don't know anything about this brand. So our goal with the agent is to enable AI to train itself from the data of those brands and create highly impactful copy that is undistinguishable between the real human copy and AI generated copy. So if we will look at the email itself, we will see that is structured in a way that copywriters will structure it to give it to the design. And let's see how the whole thing works. So let's take a look at the structure, how agent operates. So here in Notion we have a button, and if we will look at how we structure the action in this button, we'll see that we send webhook to make, and inside this webhook we send client, and we send description, which is topic of the email. And in the make, it looks pretty straightforward. So we received webhook, then we format the output by using ChatGPT, and the goal here is to distinguish between the text and URL. So sometimes in the description we have additional sources that a copywriter can use to create the copy. So we receive it as a plain text, so we need to distinguish between the URL and the text, and we need to distinguish if the text doesn't have URL as well to properly send data to the Mindstudio. So the whole magic happens inside the Mindstudio, and I will show it a bit later in the video. When we receive the output from the Mindstudio, we just simply generate JSON, and we again use ChatGPT to format this JSON into the text, so we can send it back to the Notion. And now let's walk through the Mindstudio setup. And here is where the things are getting interesting, because we need to start from training of our AI. And to do that, we need to create the data source, name it. So the name is the brand name. And then we need to upload the files. So which files do we upload? Everything that is related to the brand. So in my case, I'm using the previous emails. So I just took the email from Figma and exported as a PDF. The reason why I use PDF is because Those emails are very hard to read if we export it in a PNG format. So it's easier for the training of the AI to use PDFs. And after we exported all the emails as a PDF, we just upload it to the Mindstudio. And we do it for each brand. So as we can see here, once we uploaded the data, we can actually create the workflow. So, and our first workflow would be this. So here we receive those data from Make. We have client, we have description, and we have URL. And those are launch variables, which is important to remember in further steps. Then we have a logic. So depend on a client, we jump to the appropriate workflow. And the reason why we have these complicated numbers here is because this is the ID. And actually from the Make, I receive the ID of the client, but not the name of the client. So I distinguish clients by their ID. So this is the ID of the Cooljar brands. So the logic is, if ID matches with the Cooljar ID, we jump into the Cooljar flow. And here is where whole sauce happens. So this is the Cooljar workflow. And again, to start it, we receive the launch variables from a previous workflow, a client, description, URL. And here we have a simple logic where we distinguish between we have URL and we don't have URL. In case if we have URL, we will scrape it. And Mindstudio provides a really straightforward way to do it. We just use the scrape URL module and we input launch variable and name of our variable where URL is stored, and in my case it's just URL, and we name this variable accordingly, so it's scraped URL. This module scraped the whole page and give us this page in form of the text. Then we do query data source. What query data source module in Mindstudio does is that we see the topic of our email that we received earlier, and we try to look at our database and see if there is similar emails to this topic. So we output 20 similar email copies to topic that we gave to the AI. So this step, we just take the 20 copies that is quite similar to our main topic, and we store it in a variable. And here we have the step with the prompt. So the AI assistant is a world-class copywriter that writes copy for the brand Cooljars. And by the way, this step, it's not the main prompt because it still works with the system prompt. And the system prompt looks like this. So we have purpose, parameters, constraints, output format, and process. So basically, this long prompt is essential to create high quality output, and our goal here is to describe each possible use case of our output. And if we will go back to the automations, we will add on top of the system prompt this prompt. So AI assistant receive following topic of an email, and we have our launch variable description. Assistant follows email structure and brand voice used in previous emails, and this is the variable that we get from a query data source. So here are stored 20 similar emails, and the assistant uses website information to incorporate it into email copy if needed. And here we have the text file that is scraped from the URL that we provided. And here we have small constraint that we just need one version, 2 versions of email subject line, and no additional comments from the LLM. And after we finish with that, we sent this email back to our make, and make send it back to our Notion, and we receive the beautiful formatted copy like this. And that's it for this video. If you don't like the output from the Mindstudio and copy still feels too generic, you can always add additional things to the prompt, to the system prompt inside the Mindstudio. For example, you can add the examples of the emails that it generated and text and attach the text why this email is bad. And every time that you receive the generic copy or copy that you don't like, you input it back to the Mindstudio and say, hey, this is the example of the email that I don't want to receive anymore, and give the reason. So AI can train each time on every copy that it generates. So yeah, it's pretty powerful and pretty accessible. Thanks for being with me till the end, and cheers.